Well, first, I want to welcome each and every one of you as we embark on this enlightening and hopefully engaging conversation with our distinguished guest. It is really just truly an honor to have Girmay Haile join us today, bringing with him a wealth of knowledge, insights, and experiences that promise to enrich our understanding and broaden our perspectives. Uh, Before we delve into the heart of our discussion, I would like to extend heartfelt thanks to the organizers who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make this event possible. Your dedication and commitment to fostering meaningful conversations have laid the foundation for an occasion that we're certain will be both informative and inspiring. A special appreciation is also owed to the media teams that have played a crucial role in ensuring that these insights shared today will reach a wider audience. Your efforts amplify the impact of these conversations, and we are grateful for the invaluable contribution you make in disseminating this knowledge. Lastly, but certainly not least, a sincere thank you to everyone who has joined us today. Your presence adds value to this conversation, and we look forward to the collective learning and exchange of ideas that will undoubtedly unfold. I know we want to get the youth here, so hopefully, as you know, families, you have your families together on the one call, or you sent them the link, and things like that. So again, my name is Senai Hagos. I live in San Diego. I'm joined today with Senai and Fevin, and together we hope to deliver an amazing conversation with an amazing person. So Fevin, if you want to say hello and welcome yourself.
Thank you, Sanai. And I second everything you say. Salam Nakulana. My name is Fevin Andai. I am from San Francisco. I am a mental health therapist. I have my master's in clinical psychology, and that's my profession. Hopefully, with the collaboration with Sunnight and many more, we can do much more for the youth in future things. So thank you.
Thank you. Sunnight, if you want to say hi.
Hi everyone, my name is Sunnight. Apologies I couldn't get on camera, but my photo is right there. I am also from the Bay Area. I'm from Oakland. I am a tech recruiter for a tech company here in the Bay Area. I have my bachelor's degree from UC Davis in sociology. And I third what Fevin and Sunnight says. I welcome everyone and thank you, to Girmay Haile for giving this presentation.
Awesome, thank you. Well, so once again, thank you to the organizers, the media team, and each person that's part of this enlightening dialogue. Specifically, Mr. Girmay Haile. I mean, coming to meet us at this time, and somebody with the credentials as this, it's not every day that you get this. So, without further ado, let's begin this journey of exploration and discovery. And allow me to introduce our guest. So again, our guest today is Mr. Girmay Haile. His resume is long and comprehensive I can't fit it all here, but suffice to note the following in general terms. Mr. Girmay was born in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. At an early age, he joined the Eritrean People's Liberation Front and fought for the independence of Eritrea. After independence, he worked at various capacities in the areas of education, planning, tourism, research, and social welfare inside of Eritrea. He joined the UN late in the 1990s and served as a senior diplomat and representative in Kenya, Malawi, Mozambique, Ukraine, Ghana, Zimbabwe, and other parts of the world to carry out specific UN missions. His areas of engagement included leading UN missions on social and economic development, peace mediation, especially in Malawi and Kenya, human and gender rights, strategic planning, and program coordination, health, prevention of HIV/AIDS, leadership development, and the list goes on and on and on. We are grateful, extremely, extremely grateful that Mr. Girmay Haile is spending time with us to share his vast knowledge, but in particular, looking into the issues of youth participation and leadership and making the case of Eritrean consciousness that needs to be applied to the youth. Welcome, Mr. Girmay.
Thank you very much, Sanai, and also my warm greetings to all. This today probably for me is going to be the first time that I am addressing the youth in a more focused way. And this has also been my area of interest and concern at the same time. As we grow older and we see the younger generation coming up, having to go through in somewhat similar challenges as young people, but this time it's more complex. And the players around us are probably more organized, more effective, and more destructive. And also we have a situation back home where challenges are presenting themselves in different ways and in different colors as we move through our short-lived history as compared to many, but long-lived history as compared to forming an identity, which now today we are calling the Eritrean identity. So I am very happy. I really look forward to a warm, engaging discussion. I have tried not to be so structured in terms of my presentation. I think I just want to throw out there some bold issues that we need to look into as far as the young people are concerned, and probably enrich the discussion through participation questions and answers and views. On the outset, I'd like to urge and remind everyone that this is not a political session, and that this is not meant to be a political session, even though, of course, we cannot be so devoid and divorced from the political issues, because as a community, I think we're more politicized than anything else. So our cults, our weaknesses and our strengths are really seen in that arena, more so than in others. So let's have a very open discussion. We have lots of challenges that have never made it to a platform like this, among the youth especially. And the youth, as you know, is multi-colored youth that we have. We have youth that were born and raised in Eritrea. We have youth that were born and raised abroad. We have youth that have seen a tremendous amount of suffering and displacement at the time when they should be learning and enjoying life as young people. And we also have situations in which people feel so isolated and their identities effectively attacked. And so therefore, the issues that we can discuss about and should be discussing about haven't really been brought to the fore. So we are taken away and very much involved in the politics, but not necessarily in the development of everyone. Those who have had a chance to get organized through organizations such as YPFDJ and others probably may have had a little bit of an advantage, but this advantage has not been spread through. And again, like I said, it's not to politicize, but to bring the Eritrean consciousness, the Eritrean identity, and the Eritrean foundation much more closer to the young people as we go forward. So this is what I want to say as my entry point, and now I stand guided as to what's next. Thank you.
We do have a lot of guests here, and we will get to you guys in time. But right now, if you had some pressing points that you wanted to deliver to start with, and we can then ask questions shortly thereafter.
Okay, that's great. Well, like I said, what really goes through my mind, and especially in terms of this opportunity that we have today, is this whole issue of what are our roots and what is being an Eritrean, where does this come from, and what is it that we need to strengthen, and what is it that we probably need to also critique in the most open way and welcoming way and participatory way. The formation of the Eritrean identity, as you know, is not a phenomena that started with the Italian colonization. Yes, the name Eritrean as a reference to that particular geographic entity may have been formalized at the time, but we all know that the word Eritrea, the reference to the sea especially, is as old as human time. And it also is an indication that there was them and there was us at that point in time, when the Greeks who visited the sea also saw what was red in the sea and called it the Eritrean Sea. In some instances, this Eritrean Sea, or this reference to Eritrea, goes all the way down to the Indian Ocean, and at times beyond. But the point that I'm trying to make here is the fact that we are a people from this area is something. Sorry, I hear some echoes on my side. Maybe can everybody mute your mics? Maybe, I don't know, that could help. Okay. Yeah. So this time in memorial is something that we need to start to consider. And with that, the various civilizations that were there on this particular land, which later we know as Bahari. Yeah, as Midr Bahari is also a formation of the more contemporary society of Eritrea. These are things that happened long before the invasion of the Ottoman Turks and then later the colonization by the Italians. So this actualization of the society is a progress that took place over 1,000 years, that saw the Eritrean community, or the Midr Baharian and other communities, go into a collectivized village community setups, in which they created a sense of community services, community governance, and also community integration. And they also made sure that their intermarriages are done according to generational distance between two. And then the most important thing, which happened about 800 years ago, is they wrote laws, that we have written laws in Eritrea that you don't find anywhere else. And this is even before the Magna Carta. The Eritrean society had a sense of discipline, a sense of sharing land, a sense of communal development. And this all has to do with what eventually turns out to be as our identity. And the fact that all these took place, and the fact that we are located as a country and as people in that very strategic area of the world, we're also a result of migrations and cohesions, and also various types of civilizations that came and went. So probably we're the most cosmopolitan, we're the most mixed melting, the biggest melting pot on the continent in terms of our location. So if you go back to look into inhabitants of what we call Eritrea today over a stretched period of time, you will see that actually we are really a result of quite a number of mixes in terms of migration, invasion, and what have you, and settlements. So that has given, I think, the society a more advanced thinking about a lot of things. Can you imagine what later the world knew as socialism, or what the world knew as collective community, was already established in Eritrea hundreds and centuries ago. We didn't really need and have and use much external ideology to create that sense of identity. And that sense of identity not only brought Eritreans or connected to Eritrea people together as one heart, but it also created that sense of obligation, sense of service, and sense of duty. In many latter societies, especially in the democratic West, we talk about rights a lot. But in the Eritrean mentality and Eritrean communities, your rights are provided to you by the community. For example, when you are born, they provide you the name, they provide you your religion, they provide you family that is extended and that is also extended into the community. So everybody is involved in the affairs of how you're raised. They know who you are, they know whose child you are. And so therefore the entire community is mobilized in your upbringing. And then when you reach an age of maturity, and amazingly, this was also around 16 or 18 years of age, is that when you get married and they marry you off and they come and they build your house and they, in the next round of redistribution of land, then you get land to farm and so on. All that shows that there is that sense of identity in which people, even in the lowlands, people have very clear idea of their roots. They have very clear idea of their obligations, and they have very clear idea of their destiny. And this created this uniqueness in terms of the neighboring civilizations. For example, I don't know how many people realize that the Eritrean mentality and social fabric and also identity is built on laws. Eritreans do not have a leadership cult by culture, by history, and they do not have an administration or governance system that brings power to just one person, as opposed, for instance, with our southern neighbors. They have what they call the Kibrenagast as their definition of law, and also legitimization of
let's just, guys, we are, dealing with, technology. So it may just be a couple of minutes here. He should be back.
Yeah.
So if we can just all hang out, grab water.
Okay.
But I do really want to stress the importance of what he just briefed us on, the Eritrean identity. And he talks about, how deep that identity stretches. For the youth here, I don't want that to go missed. Okay, and I know he's going to talk more about this when he gets back, but he talks about Midri Bahari, the Eritrean Sea, and things that we're talking about, Adulis. These are things that belong to Eritreans. And some of these concepts that he mentioned, these socialisms, these things existed in the land of Eritrea prior to before these terms got coined by the West and by Europe and things. It traveled from Eritrea to the world. Today, the location of Eritrea is still extremely important, and it was at that time. So I really want to make sure that we don't miss the importance of how he started this conversation, given the fact that it's extremely important to our identity, who we are, because oftentimes I think there is this kind of understanding that as an Eritrean, we started with as an Italian colony, or we were part of Abyssinia prior to that. None of that is what our esteemed guest mentioned, and he's back now. And so we know we're dealing with the technology here, so we have no problem. We'll let him continue.
Okay. Thank you. You're back, Girmay.
So I'm back. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was talking about how we differ in terms of our approaches to self-governance and also self-actualization and identity. In Eritrea, if you say Zaban Hagi, you can stop somebody who is committing crime, and you can take them to the authorities, and they will come and they will follow you because you have said Zaban Hagi, and they won't cross that. And this now shows you the construct of the identity and the construct of the culture and the way people think. And that's why you don't see so gruesome crimes being committed among that community or those communities. Whereas on the other one, where we are talking about the Copernicus, it is the absolutism of the king and the queen, and they have legitimized their authority over the community and society. And this is the highest, in political terms, we call it the highest level of feudalism. And so the history and story is told about an individual, and their story is also geared towards one power source. So therefore, you see a very disadvantaged situation as opposed to what we see in the Metro Bahari and later Eritrea construct. Land is distributed equally. Just because you are an administrator or just because you are Tika Addi or whatever, you don't get more land. I mean, one very, very vivid and great example of this is if you go to Zazaga and you see the Barnagasi family having the same size of land and allocation for the homes as much as the land. They don't get more. So this culture of non-cult by leaders, this culture of leaders becoming a community driven service-based entities have created a sense of equality and the right to speak. And also, I think in as compared to many other communities, the Eritrean community for the last over 1,000 years has also addressed the issue of inheritance, in which women equally inherit, and which children born to the person from within or from without the marriage are also considered equally to inherit. This, I tell you, is not a simple thing. This is a very, very complex and very deep sense of identity. So when you add up these identities, and this is where I want to drive home this issue, when you add up this identity into our contemporary lives, it tells you that actually we may feel and think, and to a greater extent, because of the varied types of youth that I mentioned earlier, the locations, born in, born out, and all that, and migrated and stuff, is this whole point that we have a very long and deep history that has produced this sense of identity that we have today. That is where we need to look into. Many people complain that we probably don't have any documented history. We don't know how to understand this. Some societies like that of Eritrea may not probably have a lot of literature, even though in contemporary times there are people like Alam Saged and others, Amanel Bidamariam and so on, who try to document history of Eritrea. But the real gem of Eritrean history is hidden in the lyrics of its music. I think I had this discussion once sometime when I was in California with Elias Amare. We haven't really brought that out. If you look at the lyrics, new and old songs, there is no Eritrean song, yeah, I can say, that doesn't tell something about Eritrean and what it means to be Eritrean and what it means to be of that construct and that identity. So we have not invested as a collective group of people of such identity to make sure that the younger generation is picking up on this understanding of who we are and why we are. That's why also when I started out, I said, I don't want this to be a political discussion, but I also want to mention that the politics that we see today, I don't know how to say that, it's not really what should be amongst ourselves, because to begin with, as a people, community, and identity, we are people of duty. That is the first thing that comes for us. Second thing that comes for us is we are united, or we are always facing external enemies. We're always facing other challenges, even natural challenges. Collectively, this has been our psyche, our way of thinking. So at this point into where we are today, should we have the kind of challenges manifesting themselves as they do among our youth? Should we have these issues that we have today really a basis to define us? Should we also not have the common sense that we now start to talk about these things because we have this historical a backdrop that now helps us pick up ourselves and go to the next finishing line? We have to also think in terms of, like today you have all these, young people divided into all kinds of political views. And so the one is opposing, one is insulting, one is whatever. It's a bit of a sad thing. And when you say and look into why does this happen? Why do we even talk about supporter and opposition? Well, I mean, how can we reduce ourselves to just that? When you ask, then you realize that a lot of our education that should have been invested into the construct of the Eritrean identity among the youth has not taken place. And this is where now I come in to say, this is a failure from our generation. And maybe this is a generation that probably did monumental things in terms of establishing the nation, defending the nation, and what have you. But this is also a generation that somehow now is checked in terms of its success or failure of building the youth, because our parents built us in a way that we understood who we are. And our generation was the most radical generation that was very analytical, that was very intelligent, that was very committed and dedicated, and went and organized itself, fought a whole government and history, and won independence. But what has now happened is this generational responsibility has not been tactfully and carefully considered, because the scenario changed. This time we don't have our young, majority of our young only in Eritrea, but we have them all over the world. And not only that we have them all over the world, but we also have them in different colors. But they are our children, they are our grandchildren, they are our responsibility. And so therefore, I think we need to step back and consider this. How many families, okay, language is one thing, fine. If language is achieved, that's fine. But that self-awareness, that identity, that we don't have the luxury as a nation and a people at this stage of our history to be divided. We don't have the luxury of not having that total mobilization. One, we're few in number as compared to our neighbors. Two, we are also an advanced society that has really had an early start in terms of construct of identity. And also three, we have challenges, continuous challenges that should unite us more than divide us. But how do you get this across without being political? How do you get this across without confining the right and also the mobilization of people who are being pushed into narrow corners? So I think that is a big work. For example, let me tell you how our previous generation passed on this sense of identity to us, how effective moments were used to do that. I don't know how many of you remember or know, at one point there was a commander of the Ethiopian army based in Asmara in Eritrea, who, while traveling current from Asmara by road, was ambushed and killed. That was, the name was General Teshome Rigetu, and my father was also in the army. So we knew this family very well. We knew this person very well. I remember, I think I was 6 or something like that, 7 at that time. And we were based in Ethiopia in a place called Harar. And my father was a commander of the military academy at the time. And so one of his officers came home and we were having lunch. The whole family was sitting there. My grandmother, my parents, and us were about 7 or so. And as we were having lunch, this man barged in and gave a salute to my dad and said, "Sir, the Shiftas have killed General Teshome. Wembedi Shifta." So since we knew this man all our lives, we related to this man. So everybody was shocked around the table. And the kids, because we knew the kids, said, "Oh, Papa Teshome got killed." And so my father got up and took this man away from the dining room into the living room. There was a door and my mother followed him. And we were left there with my grandmother. And we were all saying, "Oh, these Shifta, they killed Papa Teshome." And all that. We were so, confused and sad and all that. But my grandmother stood very firm. No expression on her face, nothing. She was just quiet. And she said, "Atum kolhum, shafatu akonun, ahawat kumim." Bam. For me, that did it. Ahawat now? Ahawat now who kill? Ahawat now who go and ambush a person we know? Come and get them, ahawat now. How can they be our brothers? Where is that coming from? So you see, it triggered a series of questions because we're completely in another world. So this is now why when I think of the young generation today, especially those that are being born and raised away from Eritrea, how come they don't have a moment like that? How come they don't get that message early on so that they are focused on their identity? At 6 or 7 years old, that's when my focus was brought to the point that actually there is something that I need to know more about myself. So, of course, like every other family, there is also a mix from here, a mix from there. But that clarity of identity, I tell you, you can have like 10% drop of blood of Eritrean, but if that clarity is put there, that's it. That clarity is what I am talking about. This is the one thing that I feel such dramatic moments are not being created in the lives of our young people. They're not stopping to say, wait, think. Why would I want to join Brigade Nahamadu and go and destroy everything Eritrean? That hits at the core of our identity, at the core of our collectivity. Why is it even a political issue for Eritreans to have a festival coming together? Why is it not even an open festival for everybody? I mean, this is the kind of question that we need to ask. How well and effective have we been to inject that trigger point in every young person? We were not born and raised in Eritrea, but we were equally Eritreans like those who were born and raised in Eritrea because we had these moments. And then another instance is when I joined, I had just started, I was in my first year university when I left to go. And when I was at the university, we had such an intense political organization, had such an intense activity. We were geared like our compatriots, or our, not compatriots, but our friends, the Ethiopians, were burning buses and they were calling Maret Larashu and all that kind of stuff. But we were organized. Imagine, we were organized in a way through Tehisha and all those that were leading at the time were very young people. But we had a sense of contribution, a sense of collectivity, a sense of communication amongst ourselves as Eritrean youth. Amid that big bowl of fire, we had our own core. So why is this not happening now? What has gone wrong? Is it not something that we need to start to question ourselves? Have we lost values? Have we been too politicized? Have we been, where is it? And now my thinking was every Eritrean was like that, as educated, organized, and what have you. But when I went to Maida, the shock of my life, and until now, a shock that never left me, was to realize how very few educated Eritreans we had at that point in time. It was unbelievable. So the first thing I was asked and tasked to do was to actually educate my colleagues in my unit. Most of them did not even know how to read and write. Imagine, it is under such circumstance that we got organized and fought an independence war. And in between, we lost so many of our highly educated and skilled Eritreans. Eritreans who transformed life, Eritreans who transformed an entire battle where we were disadvantaged by number and type of arms and everything, but we won. We moved. Really, really amazing engineers, amazing doctors, amazing people, strategists. We lost a lot of people. By the time we got to Asmara in terms of independence, I don't even think 5% of them were left. Maybe that's why we have all this mess that we have internally, simply because that capacity was lost. So for people like me, when I think of that period and I see what heavy price we paid to get to where we got, and now today I sit here and go to Eritrea and I see anybody almost I meet who's 18 years or above is high school graduates. It's a complete transformation. So if it was easy for us in those days with so much smaller population of educated Eritreans can transform history, imagine what we can do now with this more educated, highly receptive, and a very, very big national and historical asset that we have among our youth, and we have not moved it. So this is my parting shot for today. I know Sanai and Sanait, I misled you with my long notes of things. Those, like I said, were not what I wanted to talk about, but they were a guiding principle. So let me stop at this one, and maybe I'll just do another part later on. But if there are any questions or any points of discussion that we can raise, I'll be very, very happy. Thank you.
Absolutely. That was amazing. I can really just listen to you speak a lot longer. What you gave us in that amount of time, so many important nuggets of information, the story of your personal life, and how things impacted you, and kind of gave you your own light bulb and turned your consciousness. It's amazing, and thank you again for sharing all of that. We are going to allow for the room to ask questions. It is very, very important that when you have a question, that you are, not going to go too long. We want to make sure that these questions are clear and it's not a speech. So if you do have a question, you can raise your hand or and we can try to get to you. Also, in the interest of, in the spirit of this conversation, he talked a little bit about over politicizing things. That is not what this conversation is about. And I do understand that at times, so many things can be politicized, and just be careful about that as we try to have and engage in these types of questions. If we do feel, I and the other moderators, if we feel that a question maybe stretches it, we will pull it from that and we'll move on to the next question. But I think we should be fine having these questions. I think, first and foremost, we talked about the Eritrean identity. And if I can ask, and if I can start with the question, and it's, we talked about maybe maybe my parents' generation, your generation, Mr. Haile, Girmay Haile, maybe there was a gap of information that came from there. And I wonder if, because of what existed in your youth, and your inability to really just live a normal life like so many of us are living now, that maybe the masses, I mean, obviously not you, you were highly educated, but for the majority that didn't get that information, that they themselves don't have that understanding of that identity, and because of that maybe are unable to pass that along. Do you think that has something to do with that?
Yes, and I think that's also part of the major problem. But what makes that problem even more complicated, that reality you mentioned, is the fact that we haven't been talking about it, that we haven't been dealing with it. This is what probably has compounded the problem that we have today. I mean, there are so many things that within a given period of time in history that happen that impact people's lives. I personally now, when I think back and see our lives at that time when we were young people, were probably more focused, more. I mean, the realities had just spelled out and also just clear things that you see or either or hear, and it was. But I think the challenges of today's youth are probably more complex than what we had as young people. And these challenges, again, have to do with all sorts of things. If we really, dig deep, we see a level of self-impediment. We see a level of self-isolation from these realities of our history. We see, values, different values that they pick wherever they live, different beliefs that probably could challenge our own identity. And we have incorporated attack on our identity as well, very well organized attack, as recent as just a few weeks ago, when say the US government said, okay, now we're looking at the Eritrean youth. That is the youth that we need to work with to prepare for a post-Isaias Afwerki Eritrea. So what does that mean? Are they going to give us candies and hot dogs? No. I think that they are going to work hard to further deconstruct our identity, and so that we now, in the end, not be serving ourselves and our national interests, but also only serving their interests, their corporate interests, sadly, also not even any other value. And then we have the effect of migration itself. When people go through this long and very arduous and very horrific trip to reach their destinations, at that age, you pick up certain things that are printed and stay in your mind. They even define your personality. They even define your perspectives. They even define your opportunities. So that is also a strong hit on the young Eritrean. And there's also an internal identity attack from within ourselves, maybe as a result of the politics, or maybe as a result of how we handled ourselves. The Agazian movement, for instance, is not necessarily a movement that collectivizes, people who have the same culture, same language, same whatever. It's not that. that it is really an attack on Eritrean identity. And people see that very, very sophisticated targeting and objective of this movement. So I think, by and large, today's youth has more complicated things to figure out and sort out than I think we had in our time. Times, at least, we were in sync with our parents, we were in sync with the reality, and things had formed themselves to a point where you see certain level of clarity about where you should belong or where you should go. But it's a very complex thing, and I don't think we talk about it enough. And I think that's what even makes it more complicated. I think.
Well, thank you. If one thing, I'm not sure, you were cutting in and out. We did hear everything you said. There was just kind of a connection thing. I wonder if leaving and rejoining would clear that out for the following questions. Would you mind doing that?
No problem.
Okay, if you can just, because I think we want to make sure we get all your answers.
And once Girmay comes back, Mercy, we'll start with you. Okay, perfect. We'll just wait for him to come back, and then we're going to go in order.
In the meantime, if Elias, you can say a few words instead of being quiet, if you can say to the audience something.
You're putting me on the spot. I would much rather listen to the voices of the youth.
Okay.
But to extend my greetings, my respect to the young Eritreans, your eagerness to know more about your history, your culture, the politics of your homeland. I know you're faced with an insurmountable amount of demonization about your beloved ancestral land. But despite that, you steadfastly struggle for Eritrea, for its development. Your commitment is inspiring. I'm just reminded often of that famous quote by Frantz Fanon, that each generation must discover its mission out of relative obscurity, fulfill it or betray it. And I always say, just our generation, when we were young, we discovered our mission and fulfilled it. I earnestly believe that your generation will also fulfill that mission, that nation building, Eritrea's nation building, taking it to the highest level, the next level of development, because nation building is an extremely arduous task. So I'm just coming from another Zoom session where I was invited in Minneapolis. The author, Sirak Kufle, is currently undertaking a book tour of the United States. He came from Norway. A very good book. I'm sure if you had a chance to see it. He had a tour. His tour started with Seattle, and then last weekend he was with us here in Oakland, California. We had a wonderful time. I'm sure Rabitsot Lazar and others will attest to that. Currently, he's doing a book event in Minneapolis. So I had the pleasure and honor to do another review beside the one that I did in Auckland, which we uploaded on my channel, by the way, Elias Amari channel. But I wish we had, this book was also translated into English, or could be translated into English, because this is the first of a projected 3-volume work, huge 3 volumes, and this is about 420 pages. But amazing, it's about Eritrea, from where to where and how. He talks about ideas, institutions, and implementation. debunking that false narrative that Girmay Haile was earlier talking. So he's back now. I will stop here. Otherwise, I can go on and on. But amazing talk presentation inside Girmay. I'll just fade back to the background.
Thank you. I prefer to hear your information instead of music or anything else. So that was what we needed until Girmay came back. Girmay, do you mind if we go into some questions that the hands are raised?
Yes, sure. Let's go into questions.
Okay, we're gonna start with Mercy and then Salam. Mercy, you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself, please, and then let's get into some questions.
Okay, got it. Hi, everyone. My name is Masara, but everyone calls me Mercy. And my question is for Eritreans living abroad, like myself, or who are born in the diaspora, what can we do to better connect and integrate with our Eritrean identity? I know that you talked about it a little bit, but if there's anything you wanted to highlight specifically.
Yeah, nice to see you, Marcy. Masarat, how are you? Yes, I think this is a fundamental issue, and I see it from a point of view where there first needs to be some sort of soul searching. Who am I? How do I live here? What are my roots? What is my history? Now, these are questions that probably come at a much later stage in the lives of maturity, whereas these things could and should have been built at a time when they, in a few years or early years, that would have given them, the advantage of placing themselves much better. But it's got because the period of time they left alone to grow on within the society and pick up the values and friendships of that society and so on. Literally created in that society because they're also born and raised there. So therefore they have that direct and immediate access to society. But the Eritrean identity and the issue of Eritrea and let's talk of Eritrea comes later in the lives. It becomes more harder and more selective also in the natural flow. That bug that you grow up with, so you're always asking, who am I, where am I, and those things. So it's really a challenge on its own, but I think the youth of today is more educated, more exposed, more traveled, more international, and probably has a lot more opportunities. That this should be a much easier mental exercise as well as conditioning oneself into that positivity. Positivity simply because there's a way and various different ways of contribution to being Eritrean, to being identified as an Eritrean. It could be a talent group, it could be a professional group, it could be an interest group, it could be whatever group. But that ability to come together, that ability for collective thinking, and so therefore engagement in various ways. Of course, nobody will expect you to have the kind of beat we had when we were young time, but you have a better intellectual also standing that you can think better and exercise better. For example,
Wait, sorry, good
I have
Girmay, can you hear me? I don't want to cut you off. Your audio
yes.
is a little bit, it's the connection. So maybe do you want to try just turning off the video? And we can try that better. Maybe it'll help.
Okay.
Let's try.
All right. Am I still on?
Yeah, I think it sounds okay so far.
Okay, let me see.
Guys, thank you for your patience. We are going to try to get this going, but you guys can see the wealth of knowledge that he has. And I think we do see the desire to hear what he has to say. And so I think it might be the best case scenario that we continue to have these conversations. We're not going to be limited to just tonight, but that we can continue these so that we can continue to learn as a group, you know. And if we can't get it to work today, we have more time to do this.
No, I think he's.
Okay. Do you hear me now?
Oh yes, Girmay, you're back. Yes, we can hear you much better.
Okay. By the way, we're using Zoom, right?
Yeah.
So our Zoom connection from here goes through China and then to the States. So you guys have to lift your sanctions on China so that you can get good service, because we get excellent service here.
Like we have to make a couple calls next time. We'll put a note for that one.
You need to use this other system that these other YouTube stations and stuff use. These things, the minute you go Zoom, if it's outside of the US, it does go through China. So that's a long distance travel. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, so just to conclude on the question from Mercy Maseret, yeah. So it is that journey I talk about, because it is a late start for many. And it is a start after already having established an identity, different identity, and also having already lived in a place and so far away from home. Even though I must say, to a certain extent, most of you or that Eritrean community in the US, you're not very few. We're only 23 here in Zimbabwe, for instance, parents and children altogether. But we're a very vibrant community despite our size. And maybe there it is a bigger society. But then, you know, as part of the support mechanism for organizations and for young people especially, I think there needs to be a more focused and concerted effort in terms of making available the centers or the opportunities for Eritreans to get engaged young people. So it could be a summer trip organized to Eritrea. Yeah, I know we have a little bit of that, but that really needs to be the mainstream activity, how to organize and reintegrate Eritreans. And remember, when we talk about Eritreans born abroad, having their challenges trying to get into swing with their identity, it's also integrating with the local community in Eritrea and the young people in Eritrea as well, who also have taken off, on a tangent on their own, different ways, lots of reality, lots of issues there also that are shaping them into the kind of young people they are. So, like I said, if we think of Eritrea as a melting pot, because remember I said earlier that one of our strong points as construct, as a community, as an identity, is that Eritrea for centuries has been a melting pot. And now, even more so by people who have moved from Eritrea to other places, have now further added to that quality. So this is a quality or a strength that we need to understand is something that we need to capture for the sake of our national livelihood, for the sake of our sustenance as a nation, and also to go into the next level of our identity construct, which is very, very important for us. So if we see and approach things from that point of view, I think there will be an increased flow of youth joining into this formation of identity and formation of that sense of values that we have in Eritrea, which primarily begins with duty before rights, and also looking at the opportunities that are being made available for Eritreans inside the country as a result of our collective efforts from outside here. So I think these are the kind of things that young people can consider.
Thank you, Girmay, and wonderful question, Mercy. That was right with you. We're gonna go to Salam, and then after Salam, Sanai is gonna read some of the questions in the comments. But Salam, we'll start with you first.
Thank you. Again, hello, Girmay. I'm gonna ask him in Tigrinya. Natay حتو بناتكم generation جزي سكاب حجي جامعهم كي كيركم قالوا سلهم this generation جن حنساب حمدو حنساب قال يمت علموني إزي تاتسني بخمي جيركا تبدهو بخمي جيركا أمس مرو تأتوه فزناتكم تايم نعشتو خلوكم غنا ميداوتيكم تمرتهم قريفكم ناتسنة حسكم متيهم حجيقن بالرعيدلو أقر مفراسي بالرعيدلو ناتكم this generation totally different money بخمي غير كاتب الدهو money زوم من اسي maybe سلدي فلتو اليوم نا هاقروم كونتات ولاس فليتو ددك أسا عيسمعني دبال كم أخوينهم يوموني زي بناتك experience تتبرها دس مبلني يغني لي for everything Girmay Haile.
Thank you, Salamina, and also again, nice to see you, Salam. It's always a pleasure, and also thank you for all the phone calls and messages you send and all that. To come to your question, I presume it is to a greater advantage if I responded in English instead of in Tigrinya, because that's what we're trying to achieve here, that everybody hears. Generational transition of values is always a big challenge. That's what I was saying earlier. I think there is a gap somewhere. Something has happened. We have missed out on something. What a given generation needs to do, needs to provide and be able to encompass that transition of values, knowledge, information, culture, all those things. You cannot blame squarely the young generation for not responding. Usually a generation responds to the level of input that has been made into that generation by the responsible generation that is raising them. So the primary problem must be with our generation and not so much with this generation. That's one thing. And second thing, like I said earlier, since there is the opportunity for education, change, experience, exposure, and so on, this generation should, in my view, also be a much better generation than ours because of the access to information and access to all sorts of exposures. Probably easier to be transformed or to be awakened to their sense of identity and what needs to be continued. Definitely, the world is not the same, and it will not stay the same. Probably the more complex world ahead of us, they probably understand better than we do. But I think our ability and level of communication in terms of, making the resources and information and exposure to them probably may be lacking, and I like to believe that's where it is. I also understand why it is lacking. Like I said, from a political structural point of view, we lost a lot of high quality people during the independence war. So therefore we were really challenged after independence, and we still are. This is a fact. Second thing is, because of the migrations and movements, and also the fact that since independence, we have not really had that moment of rest and breathing space to really look inward and do what we need to do as much. Probably some chain has been broken in that exercise. And thirdly is, once people have moved, young people are starting to be born abroad, the level of injection by parents and the so-called community that you're in as an Eritrean community could not probably meet the more stronger influence that they pick up as they grow up where they grow up. So I think we haven't balanced it out. And I think there needs to be more social oriented, cultural value oriented, and identity construct oriented efforts that need to be more. I had said earlier, for instance, there has been a lot of effort through, say, YPFDJ and those kinds of things. Apart from the politics of it, I think the values and the understanding of the complex settings of our identity have always been challenged. So I think this is where we need to look at. It's very difficult to blame this new generation for being the way they are, because imagine if that decisive injection that triggered my life into my identity and my commitment, my sacrifices, was not done by my grandmother at that point in time. I wonder where I would have been. Probably I would have also been a bit slow, but even though the realities, circumstances around me at that time probably may have also presented themselves as an opportunity to learn and understand who I am and where my destiny would be. But still, at every stage and at every generation, there are their own, like what Elias was saying earlier from quoting from Frantz Fanon. Elias is very good at these things, by the way. He's a very well-read guy. He knows, he remembers every single line he reads, but me, I'm not good like that. I think I look more inward into the Eritrean construct and try to find my answers within the Eritrean construct. What happened, how people are organized, how communities developed, how communities protected themselves, how communities related with other communities, how that entire setup is. I mean, luckily, my mother comes from one of these Hanagasi families, so therefore there is a lot of story being told, through that about what was happening. So I think I'm more of that local value as my primary value driver than anything else. And I think this generation needs to be looked into. First of all, I think there is lack of transfer from parents who are also preoccupied themselves in survival mode and preoccupied in having to focus on education on their children. One best Eritrean quality is about belief in education and so on, but not also being able to meet the challenges that as they were trying to educate their children, give them the best opportunities, that they're also drifting away from our values and from our identity construct. So I think it is also as much to do with us as it is to do with them.
Thank you, Girmay and Salam, for that question. That's a lot in there to unpack, and I think it hit multiple points. So I'm going to pass it over to Sunnight. We have 2 questions in the comments, and then we'll go to Betty in a second, but we're just going to read some of the questions in there.
Okay, thank you, Fevin. So the first question is by Moses, and he asked the question, What lessons can today's youth learn from the earlier generation that was instrumental in initiating, leading, and achieving Eritrea's independence?
Yes. In a way, like I said, leading the independence movement and the struggle presented itself as a raw fact right in front of that generation's eyes. So seeing that there aren't very many other bends and turns that one can take to avoid or deal with the situation differently, I think there was a choice to meet the challenge head on, and that defined that generation, and that defined the mission as well. So those two went together. So therefore, it drives you whenever you arrive to a real factual situation in which to face a challenge. Once you are in that mode and in that position, then your commitment to that is limitless. And in this case, the commitment was self-sacrifice. I just want you to think, just step out of your shoes for a minute and say, if I do this, I could get killed. I could die. Would I do it or not do it? That generation chose to do it, knowing that they could die. But then such death is never death in vain. It is a death that marks the beginning of the longer or more intensified identity construct of the coming generation. That's the price being paid. So that price being paid should be what must develop in the minds of many in terms of what they want to do with themselves going forward. It's always very important to have that and do that. So the challenges were severe, but like I said earlier, it is always difficult to compare the challenges of those times and the challenges of today as an independent nation. Independence resolves the primary question of the struggle, which is to achieve independence, and you have achieved it. But once you achieve independence, then the road ahead in terms of nation building, in terms of community building, in terms of generational transformation, in terms of transfers of values to generations, in terms of reorganizing and re-engineering society so as now benefit from the status of independence and to be able to build, creating wealth, creating development, creating opportunities moving forward. All those challenges are completely new and unwritten and undescribed or undefined during the period of independence. I must also add, in the Eritrean case, I think the level and capacity of a visionary leadership in moving the massive Eritrean desire for independence and giving it purpose and giving it meaning as to what that means and which way to go. I think we were lucky. Like I said, we had leaders, we had highly educated people, we had very committed Eritreans, like no other experience. Until today, the Eritrean psyche is, if it is for my nation and about my nation, I'm ready to sacrifice myself. This is the national psyche that we have. How much of this national psyche is now incorporated into the new era, the new dispensation, is a question we need to further discuss. So the independent Eritrea became a totally different type of challenge. The nation building exercise, which is not a one-day or a one-year work, but it had started in earnest soon after independence. One of the biggest and most important and permanent visionary gifts that we had from the Eritrean movement leadership is that we are not going to settle for a de facto independence that we bring by military, by winning wars, but we want a political independence. That is a very, very crucial moment. How many young Eritreans know that the Eritrean independence came about as a political move rather than armed struggle? It is amazing to witness that moment of referendum that took place in 1993 in Eritrea, and just to see a total sum of all the struggles and sacrifices that were made at that time were all defined in that one moment, in that one day of referendum, when people went out to vote whether they want to be independent or not. The whole 30-year struggle just culminated in this one day. If you appreciate that one day, then you realize that one day is the hinge between the past and the future. The future still requires more clarity. The future still requires a longer road to travel. The future still requires higher levels of participation. The future still requires more committed construct of our identity as Eritreans and our commitment to duty. That is where the nation is built. That is where the independence challenge is met. And so therefore, like I said earlier, I feel that the current generation, the mass of it being more educated, more self-aware in a sense that our education system is not tainted by the education system that you see everywhere else in the world. Our education system doesn't teach Christopher Columbus was a great discoverer. It teaches practical things, and it teaches what the nation will need to crank itself to the next level. So that in itself is an advantage, as we see many Eritreans who leave Eritrea to go abroad and go into education. They are always brilliant, they're always amazing, they're always, that thing is already in them. It's built in them, to fight, to challenge, things that come. So I think the independence era is where we are at now, and our psyche also needs to up itself in that sense and be able to bring together as many Eritreans as possible. Like I said earlier, we don't have the luxury of being divided. We don't have the luxury of going into petty politics. We don't have the luxury of disposing people or the use and throw mentality that we have in other systems. There is no Eritrean that is of no value to Eritrea. There is absolutely not a single one. Even a challenged Eritrean will still be an asset to Eritrea. And we need to find that mode where we need to take ourselves to in order to be able to conquer what is ours. Over to you.
Thank you very much. We have one other question, and this question is, where can we as Eritrean youth find a direct source in English that can break down world history and Eritrean origin stories? Is there a website, platform, or YouTube video?
That's a very good question, and I think that also is one of the best examples of what I am talking about. This is, like I said, a generation now that collects information that way. This is a generation that will look for something, and if they find it, they find it. But if they don't find it, then it's not there, and then they stop at that. And I cannot, at this point, sit here and tell you this is the source to go to. This is the material to read, but I know there's a lot of content that is being developed. The fact that we don't have an Eritrean site where such content is pulled together despite the fact that we have so many highly educated Eritreans who probably could do this, the fact that it's not done shows one of our gaps. People have started to go into YouTube services, and there they try to bring the collective experience, knowledge, and information on Eritrea onto their programs. But these are programs that take hours and hours for people to sit down and watch and listen. And the youth of today don't have that patience. They don't have that time. They don't have that culture of taking time to discuss things. So one of my proposals that I had in mind that I was going to mention later probably was around this. So while I'm here, I might as well just present it. One of our challenges is content. Now, the primary challenge in that is the existing content is not pulled together. I know we have a very robust research center in Eritrea at the PFDJ office, but that documentation center has not been accessible to all Eritreans. So I think one mission that young Eritreans can do collectively, and this, like I said, this doesn't have to be politicized or anything, is to create a center. I know of a young man in Sweden by the name of Tedros Shida, who probably has come closest to this idea, and I think a recognition by all Eritrean youth and by all Eritreans altogether of that effort, and the desire to now populate that site with Eritrean content could probably help those who look for such access in terms of content. But it is a very critical thing because, like I said, this is a more educated, more advanced generation. So you cannot just expect that lessons are learned over a dinner table at home. It's not enough. There has to be more. The mind is being structured educationally and culturally to look for these things and to find them on the website for them to believe, trust, and move on, than to talk to them about, than to just constantly, be a source of explanation. It's not enough. So I think there has to be a very deliberate move in this direction of creating a center of information. I know there are efforts, bits and pieces here and there, but really this has to be a major thing. Like I said earlier, two things. The first challenge is, finding a source. And the second challenge is also supporting the development of content. There are some young Eritreans. I know, I heard recently that there was this young Eritrean who did a video game based on the 18 minutes at the Sembel airport. There's a commando mission by the EPLF to destroy the Air Force based in Asmara.
Ethiopian airport.
Ethiopian airport. Yeah. So this young man, it's amazing, and he did that while he was in Asmara also. So we need to have our own awards. We need recognitions. We need to have our own websites where we bring some of the best minds, young Eritrean minds together, so they know each other, they work together, and that they understand and share challenges and stuff like that. We haven't exploited our massive dynamics in this sense. So that is the second challenge. And the third one is to support content creators. Basically, there are many people who may have lots of books that they have written but are not published. There are those that have written books but are really, really challenged in having them completed. We need to have a group of young people who are interested in this and then mobilize, like the way we do for cancer treatment, the way we do for other projects. We can also do an organized support mechanism to help create content by supporting content creators. So these are a chain of things that need to be done and can be done and should not be limited to only what is happening in Asmara. But I think there is a lot of need for that. So people like Tedros Shida should be brought into the center stage in this, and others probably that I don't know, but maybe out there, Dr. Tesfamadi in Stanford. These people have to come together. There needs to be a group that now move this agenda. Over to you.
Yeah, you know, if I can just jump in real quick, and thank you for that answer. And honestly, that was a great question. I did put a link in the search, and because Mr. Girmay Haile just touched on it at the end there. There are these quarterly magazines that do go out that do talk about Eritrean identity. There is a lot of content, history, and things of the like. So your support there and would be greatly appreciated. So for those of you who are looking for places to learn, that would be a good place to start. If I can now throw it back to you, Fevin.
Thank you, Sanai. Thank you, Girmay. We do have a couple more questions. I know time is slowly approaching, much needed event. I'm gonna go to Betty. She had her hand raised, and then Fallon, but we're gonna start with Betty. Is she there? There we go.
Hi.
Hi.
So I have a question. So if you have Eritrean parents and you were born in America, are you Eritrean or are you Eritrean American? Because both your parents are Eritrean.
Betty, thank you for that question. I get that question a lot from very young people like you. We are Eritreans, and that's the end of it. Now, why you were born in the States, how you got there, and what is your story, your family story. A story that probably has a lot of important things in it, a lot of important lessons to learn. But then since you're born and raised there, you're also equally an American because you are a citizen of that country. And so therefore that right is a right that cannot be taken away from you because this is one of your birthrights, your citizenship, where you're born. But other than that, remember, citizenships are political classifications of people in terms of their geographic location at a given point in time. But deep inside you, your DNA, your blood, your breath, your every cell of you is Eritrean. Now, how you want to marry that with your American identity is a fun game for you, I guess.
Thank you, Betty. That was a great question. I'm so happy you asked. Let's go to Fallon.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm at work. I would turn on my video, but this is, I guess, a happier version on me in this picture. Thank you so much for this. This has been a very valuable history lesson and so many other lessons for all of us, I think. My question is, as someone who I think something that at least the Eritrean youth who are here in the States or otherwise have to offer is many of us have had the opportunity to pursue educations and to become sort of masters of different trades. So I myself went to medical school. I'm here in my surgical residency training now. And a lot of what I hope to do is to be able to, obviously return back to Eritrea because, all of this journey would not be worthwhile if I don't have the opportunity to go back home to my own people. And so, I'm just curious as to what kinds of opportunities exist in that space and how we can just grow as, people here in the diaspora who have different talents, different gifts that we can go back and kind of learn from, our people back home, but also contribute to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question, Fallon. In fact, one of the well and better organized groups of Eritreans in terms of connecting to Eritrea and being able to support in many ways is actually the medical group. I know of a very serious and focused activity going on in terms of taking doctors, pharmacists, and other medical experts in groups to Eritrea for a period of, I don't know, 10 to 20 days or 30 days, and do their consultations, their exchanges, and their training and what have you in Eritrea. This is picking up very effectively. And I'm also very happy that this group, the medical group, is on the forefront of this, because given the fact that health is free in Eritrea, and that you don't see major epidemics, you don't see cholera, you don't see all these things. I think the health achievement is massive, but it is also an achievement that really needs to be transformed into an advanced service where Eritrean citizens have access to highly qualified and well-trained Eritrean doctors who speak their language and who know that these are Eritreans, and so therefore they trust and be able to respond positively. I don't know if you know Dr. Mangus Baile. If not, I'm sure the organizers here can help you get in touch with him. He's doing a great job in organizing a lot of these things. I also do appreciate that the medical team, even though it's a big name within it, have all kinds of specialties and expertise that are seen separately. But in your case, I think if there is some collective way of getting together as people in that similar area of expertise, to be able to organize yourselves, I think that should be welcome, and I think a lot more doors are being opened in Eritrea today. But while you're at it, what I really want to also urge that you also think in the background is, while you have your expertise to offer the Eritrean society, you also have your identity to offer, which means that your depth of knowledge, understanding, and also appreciation of the Eritrean society in its various forms, and your ability to touch the real chord that matters for your profession to even quadruple or multiply its values when it comes to a point of contact for service, is also very essential. How much you learn, how much you transform yourself, and how much you understand the real values and roots of the society will help you communicate better. If you can speak Tigrinya, that's fine. If you cannot speak Tigrinya, the fact that you are one of the will also make it a lot more easier for you to penetrate. But let's also do the scientific aspect of things as well, in which your understanding of the society, its culture, its diets, its everything is really analyzed properly, so that your at point of contact, your contribution really has a multiplying effect to it. I hope I've answered this, Fallon, but if I have not, please let me know. But again, I think you should meet with Mangus right away.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Girmay and Fallon. I've wrote so many papers and everything because I want to go back to Eritrea as well to do some psychology work. I say psychology when I go to Eritrea and they're like, what? Mind reader, So I hope I can be alongside with you, Fallon, one day with the medical side and do the psychology side. That is my goal. So I love that. I'm listening to that and I'm loving that I got this information. So I'm very appreciative that it's more than just me, and I'm sure more than just you and I. So I hope one day. I will pass
How
it
about having a medical conference there of Eritrean medical conference, where all these papers are presented, information is shared, and create that movement in terms of the intellectual and scientific aspect of the work, and knowledge and understanding. I think this needs to be shared a lot among the medical experts. That's my favorite group, by the way.
I think you're absolutely right.
I
think
like
it's
that group.
Oh, sorry, Girmay. I was gonna say you're absolutely right. This I have a group I'm trying to work in San Francisco. It's called TREE, the Resource for Eritrean Empowerment, where I can get different professionals, different walks of life, different parts of the world, and eventually kind of create a website or a directory website where you can get an eye doctor or get a medical professional, get a teacher. So it's in the works as much, slowly but surely, hopefully. But I'm happy that this is the start, that I'm going to meet so many people. So thank you. I'm going to pass it over now to Senai.
Thank you, Fevin. We do have this esteemed guest, and we do have to be respectful of his time. So we will try to get to one more question. I'm sorry that we're not going to get to all the questions tonight, but we still want to leave room to let you guys know this won't be the last time. We're going to be able to have these lessons and conversations moving forward. So we're going to get to one more question here. I think Mikhail, I think, was the next on the list here. So if you can do that, and then we'll move on to closing remarks.
Thank you, Girmay. I want to ask you a slightly different question. Since you are living in Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe was more or less under sanctions for many years, and Eritrea was under sanctions. How can you compare the two countries, how they dealt with the sanctions? I hope my question will be important. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Yes, Zimbabwe is still under sanctions. One can easily see the injustice of sanctions when you see what happens in Zimbabwe. Of course, what has happened in terms of the UN sanctions and now the unilateral sanctions on Eritrea is also a very important lesson that we Eritreans have learned. And one part of our extended resilience as a people and a nation to, while at the same time maintaining our sovereign and integrity, it has also costed us a lot in terms of our livelihood and development. In Zimbabwe, it is the same thing, but there is also it's also a little different because they didn't go through a difficult and complex independence struggle that compares to that of Eritrea. And second thing is also they had their independence made as a deal in Lancaster House. So therefore, there were a lot of articles in that deal that really prevented them from attaining their full independence without consequences that followed thereafter. So it's a more intertwined, complex political relationship that they have with their colonial power, the UK, and now more so the US. Zimbabwe is a very, very, very rich country from tip to tip. There is big freshwater supply. There is huge farmlands. The population is only about 14, 15 million. And also there is a lot of natural resources as well, that a lot of diamonds, gold, and platinum, and lithium, and everything you name it, they have here.
So that has also put them very much in a disadvantage in terms of them being able to own their own political destiny. And again, that complexity is slightly different from ours, because at least on ours, we said, no, we're not going to be dominated by anybody. As severe as it may be, we fought our independence alone. There is no way that we are going now to come and hand over what we have achieved. So there is a higher level of discipline and commitment on the Eritrea side, but there is a lot of other fiscal and corruption and other challenges that are more severe in Zimbabwe. But when you add the two, we see how painful it has become to be under sanctions. A lot of young Zimbabweans also leave the country to look for jobs. They're not, the migration is not as politicized as that of Eritrea, but quite a big number of South Africans, Zimbabweans move to South Africa and other places in the world. They have a highly educated population, and they're among the top in terms of literacy on the continent. The Zimbabweans say Mugabe gave them, three very important things. One is he gave them land, and two, he gave them education, and three, he gave them the right to choose what they do in their lives. And in Zimbabwe, it is not uncommon to see that almost everybody has a piece of land, almost everybody has a home. It's not a country that really suffers from homelessness as such in the numbers that we see elsewhere, but there is a lot of opportunities that has been taken away from the country, and people are equally suffering here as well. Over to you.
Perfect, thank you. I think that could be a whole conversation, Zoom session on its own there, the effects of the sanctions to these countries here. So we did, I know I said we were going to be starting to wrap up. We do have one more youth here, so we want to let her ask her question, and then Abdullah will be the last to, with his hands up. So we'll finish after that. We do want to be respectful of our guest time. So Bella, are you, can you come off mute, please?
Hi, yeah, I'm
Perfect.
here. I put my question in the chat, but since I have the opportunity to say it, I will. So, as a member of the youth, we're always eager to help further develop the country, even as students. And with that being said, I was just wondering if there were internships or similar opportunities where students from various academic disciplines, such as myself, could, help out. And as an environmental engineer,
I'm so sorry, Bella. It's just hard to hear you. I don't know that he can, if you can get closer to the mic, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Perfect,
Is this
better,
better?
much better, much better. If you
Okay.
can just start the question so he can get all of it.
Yeah. So my question, we're all eager to help further develop our country as students. So I was wondering if there were internships or similar opportunities where we could kind of get involved, and students from various academic disciplines, such as environmental engineers, as myself, could help develop the country through specific initiatives or goals the country has. Hope you could hear me.
Yes, I think I heard you, Bella, and thank you very much. When you say you want to help the country develop, Bella, let me ask you, because I want to really understand as well, even though I face similar discussions with others. When you say you want to help develop a country, what do you have in mind? What goes through your mind when you say that?
So what goes through my mind is, bringing my knowledge from what I'm learning in school to the grounds in Eritrea, whether that be through negative impacts of environment on the country, and just any way that I could help.
Yeah. Okay. You didn't answer. You told me the purpose, but I'm asking in your mind, how do you do that? So is it going to Eritrea and doing a 1 year, 2 year, 4 year research develop an empirical database about environmental impacts on Eritrea, look at the human resource that has been deployed to address such impacts, and the resilience program. I mean, how do you think you can do it? That's what I want to understand. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, my dear, but I'm just trying to really understand what goes through your head when you say you want to do these things.
Yeah, no worries. I think all of that, 100%. I think in any way that I could help, if there are people on the grounds in Eritrea doing that resilience work, doing that research, I would just love to be of help in any way that I could.
Okay, so my simple advice and suggestion to you, remember what I talked about, the Eritrean psyche. We do better and a lot when we do things collectively. That becomes more robust. So I suggest that you create a group of like-minded young professionals who need to zero in, not talk much, but zero in into the fact of developing a scientific understanding of what exactly and how Eritrea is impacted by environment change and climate change, and also the capacity for resilience of communities, and the kind of inputs that are made by government institutions, and also the kind of development work that were done and the partnerships that were established around this. Try to create a database of that. Try to create a group that comes together and thinks like you, wants to do what you want to do, and be able to grasp the reality on the ground. So when we go through school, especially in the West, we think as defined problems, in that are also somehow resonating the same way elsewhere. That's why I was telling what's her name, Fallon earlier on, that there needs to be that other aspect of the professional weight and capacity that you bring into the game. There has to be some sort of ability to connect with the local reality there, and it could require, in your case, probably an extended period of time. But the best thing for you to do now is try to get in touch with those that have similar professional backgrounds, education backgrounds, and are focused in those particular areas that you want to look into. And that now will give you the strength now to start to think exactly what can be done thereafter, because you need to go to on the ground, you need to meet with people there, you need to understand what they understand, you need to know what their needs are, you need to know what the capacities are on the ground to, and then also be able to say, okay, so this is the gap that we see right here, so let's fill this gap so that we can move on to the next level. So it becomes more complex the closer you get to the ground. So I think the best start will be to pull together with other environmental scientists like yourselves first.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Abdullah, I think he took his hand down, or did you?
No, I lowered it off. I was trying to give them some connections, so how they can get to the right people, so we can divert them straight to the right people, so they can go with their programs.
Okay, you guys heard it. You guys heard it. You guys heard it. You know how to reach out to them. You can message them. I know we've seen some things in the chat, so if you guys have these questions, certainly this is the right people to get in contact with. Senite, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. So I'm going to ask this one last question, and I think it's a great way to end this presentation. This person did not want to be named, but her question was, there is a lot of division in the Eritrean diaspora, as it's been mentioned, but there also seems to be an attack on the Eritrean identity itself. Our identity has been politicized, and this is attacked on a consistent basis. what are words that you can share with the youth to encourage their continued exploration of their identity?
Yeah, that is one of my major concerns, and probably what even led us to this session today, when we had all these interesting discussions with Zagate and the others. This is what I'm saying. That division is a luxury we don't have, for many reasons. First of all, our construct as an identity, as a people, as Eritreans, is not a new phenomena, but it has been one that has been building for centuries. So any person who considers himself or herself as having Eritrean roots or being Eritrean have absolutely no shame to suffer, because there are these identity attacks coming from these lesser groups that have focused on chipping away the Eritrean strength, which is hitting at the core, and that is our identity. So that's why I think it's luxury, and the fact that it is being politicized, for any right mind, for any educated person, you understand that politicizing identity, culture, and history is a very cheap way and a very underrated way of attacking a civilization that has been there for many years. They will fail, but not only will they fail, but also, why do we even allow that to happen? So you see the level of vulnerability of the Eritrean youth today, especially abroad, in terms of educating them about their duty, their identity, their strengths, and also their collective strengths. This is where I was saying earlier that the generational transfer of these values with history and with impeccable record, there has been some disconnect, and so therefore these young people are becoming vulnerable to attacks that are coming from various sources. It's a dangerous thing, but more importantly, it is something for us to worry about, and I don't think we have worried about it openly in a way that we discuss about it. We need to deal about it. So far, the response has been political. So you're in this camp or you're in the other camp. But I don't think the response has really addressed the root causes of why so many young people are being prone to such division, to such subnational level thinking, and becoming victims of such groups that are attacking us. I think that's where we need to take the conversation. This is a very important question, and hopefully this has been the theme of this conversation we're having today. Where are our youth? What happened? Where are the elder generations? Where did it disconnect? What happened to us? We are not new people. We are people of a very long history, long civilization, long experience, and even our armed struggle was a long one of the longest in the world. So all these things must add up. Something is missing. Something has gone wrong somewhere. Like I said, are we educated today as a society? Yes, we are actually in per capita now. We have become among the top in Africa, even among the top 20 in the world. That is the per capita of education that we have in our country. So that shows you we are a completely transformed society. And then even though it is highly politicized and exaggerated, the number of Eritrean migrants that have moved out of Eritrea to settle elsewhere are also still operating within that sense of community, and are also still very linked to their politics, but not to their history, not to their identity, not to that construct that makes us who we are. Remember, like I said, we are a melting pot. We have all kinds of Eritreans of all sorts of backgrounds, of all sorts of ethnicity, of all sorts of everything. But what has bound us together is history, culture, and value. And this we cannot lose, and we must really protect. So when we see our young people so distracted, so drawn into these very marginalized and politicized agendas, it really breaks my heart, because these people are not enemies of Eritrea. These are our own children, these are our own relatives, these are our own people. We cannot throw them away. If young Eritreans are joining Brigade Nahamadu, we know Brigade Nahamadu and the source and where it is coming from and what political background it has. And then we know where it is headed. But we cannot treat our young people who may have joined them as enemies. That's what we need to stop doing. These are our own, they are our own problem. They're our own sign of failure. We need to redesign, rethink, how we are as parents, and also, to understand what the real social and other problems are for these young people to go astray like that. There is nothing wrong in being abroad. There's absolutely nothing wrong in being, an Eritrean, but being an Eritrean doesn't necessarily mean that you are politically supporting government or not supporting. That's not even the issue at this stage. At this stage, we are losing constantly our young people unnecessarily, and we have the responsibility to act on that and start to discuss these things. Yeah, over to you.
Okay. Wow, thank you. That was a great way to finish that. So I do want to give you some time, Mr. Girmay Haile, if you wanted to, there were some points that you think that you wanted to finish off with, or any closing remarks, anything else that you wanted to share with us before we begin to close the show.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, the little part that I left was just to say this. We need to internalize this. We need to internalize this in a way that we also remove the political boundaries to be able to discuss about the youth. The youth is our future. That's where we plant it. And if we don't plant it now, then this youth will have a different experience. So, as I said earlier, let's look at interesting issues. Self-impediment. We need to look into this. We need to understand why some Eritreans undermine themselves, especially when it comes to identity, and especially when it comes to our sovereign status and our relations with our neighbors. A typical Eritrean would first say, what is my national interest? A good example is the crisis that the Ethiopian leader has created now about ownership of a port and all that. Of course, it's crazy, but you need to explain why it's crazy. And I have this interesting conversation with some young people, including my own. Some will even tell you, I mean, what's the problem? We have two ports, we can give them one, and we have another one, will be fine. So when you see young people saying that, that is a very clear indication that there has been some serious disconnect as to what sovereignty means, as to what Eritrean identity means, and as to what peaceful coexistence with neighbors means. It's not that they're uneducated only, but they're also totally neglected. They have been left out of this conversation, the core conversation, so that they have gone into applying other values, applying other modes of thinking. So let's say an average American kid, Eritrean American kid, would probably primarily have the American value, without any consideration that the Eritrean value has always been in conflict with the American value. Not that we don't want democracy, not that we don't want any of those goodies that they think they have, but simply because the state in which we are created and the state in which we live is a state that has constantly been under attack for all reasons. That is the control of that very strategic seaway in the world. And so therefore, we have been subject to a number of disruptions. We have been subject to a number of disinformation. We have been subject to a number of accusations and isolations and demonizations. All those things were happening. And somebody who is not connected to these realities, somebody who is not linked to these realities will come with these very soft ideas of, no, it's okay, we can share, we can give them, we can do that, whatever. And for us as Eritreans, it's probably even more painful to hear our own Eritrean youth in some homes say that than say, you know, 1,000 propaganda pieces that are, thrown out of us on a daily basis. So what is the issue and what is the understanding? So Eritrean youth need to understand what our national interests are. They need to understand what our realities are, and they need to understand what we are pushing back. I don't think there is a history in Eritrea where we have pushed back human rights. I don't think. Yes, all kinds of arguments can come, but look at it. Immediately when we started to organize ourselves as a liberation movement, what we did was services to the people, education, health, and what in the liberated areas. We did not operate like a guerrilla movement, but we operated like a state. So that already gives you one thing. You go to Eritrea and do health comparison, for instance, almost 99% child immunization. You don't find that anywhere in the world, let alone in Africa. That is the right for people to health. You don't have epidemics in Eritrea. We have reduced HIV and AIDS to 0.4 or 0.5 at this point in time. That means it literally doesn't exist. There has been a lot of things that have been done that would look into the rights. But the rights that our young people will talk about is the elections and what have you. Has there not been any appetite for that? What happened right after referendum? We drew a constitution. If there was no desire to move in that direction, why would we do that? We moved into developing and revising the penal code. We moved into all those things. If that was not disrupted, the will was there. So if the will was there, that means the intellectual understanding, the doctrine also exists, but we also have history. We have Hagindapa, which has made us a society, an advanced society. We had systems in the past that treated everybody equal. We had a system in the past that we can talk of. It's a written, documented history that we have. So this is what we need to start to think about. How is this missed in the youth of today? And the other one is self-isolation. Self-isolation is a very typical product of this highly advertised democratic systems. You're just an individual in this huge sea of humanity. It's just you that matters. It's just about you and nothing else and nobody else. This contradicts with our Eritrean value, where we are a community. We live in a community. We think community. We are connected, and each one, the success of Sanai is the success of Sanka is the success. That's how we think. That's how we are. We have lost that because a lot of this self-isolation is becoming. I think maybe Faven can probably talk a lot about this in her research. And the other thing that also we need to talk about is this incorporated organized attack. Okay, one is on the immediate identity, but also in our existence as a nation, we're constantly under threat. If we are constantly under threat, the first thing we have to do as a response is, since it is a physical and national threat, we have to militarize ourselves. There's no question about that. We're not going to hire mercenaries from elsewhere like they do in other countries to come and overthrow a government or whatever. We cannot deal like that. We have to militarize ourselves, because where we are located in that strategic place, and the kind of histories of our neighbors have, and the kind of history we had, and the kind of migration movements into and out of Eritrea that we had, we cannot sleep on this. So when you come and attack the consequences of this choice, then you're telling me you're not thinking in the interest of the nation. You're thinking in the interest of the individual. You're thinking in the interest of other forces that want to dominate us. So how do we pull together this attack that is on us and make sure that young Eritreans understand that we're constantly under attack? And finally, what are the key drivers that matter in our identity? I think this is a value chain of our construct that has somehow not been smooth as it used to be, that there's some disconnect somewhere. So we have lost a portion of our very important young professionals and young youth who have completely now lost their ways and are in this mess. So I think we need to start to understand what are the key drivers, that matter in our identity, and how do we reconstruct this lost force and this lost opportunity to pull together. I think there needs to be a more concrete and more precise focus on this, and we need more of these discussions. So with that, I want to say thank you very much to the organizers, especially Sagan and Lazar. I'm very grateful for this opportunity. It has been wonderful working with Sanait and Sanai. What a coincidence, both of them have the male and female version of the name, but here they are doing a magnificent job. I also want to really appreciate Marhawit and Masarat, the twin sisters, one of them in Zimbabwe now with me right here, and the other one back home in the States, doing all I'm getting all my technical support on this side from Marhawit, and I'm very grateful for that. And this is wonderful, and I really I'm very grateful to see my old friend Elias Amara. Amazing. I don't know how that guy makes time for everything, but it's just been such a valuable friendship with him. It's been such a valuable thing to have him, in the forefront in this communication and bringing Eritreans together, and also other non-Eritreans together into our movement for this. So I want to urge the youth, finally, I think this is your time to speak up, and this is your time to just get serious and get on with this responsibility. I think our generation is gracefully aging, and I think we have very little time, but you have plenty of time to do even triple what we were able to do. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. I do want to say sorry to those who didn't get a chance to ask their questions. I know you had your hands up, and this won't be the last time. We will be able to have conversations like that. Just to kind of, what I've taken from this, there's really a delicate balance between preserving, our rich cultural heritage and embracing, the opportunities and changes of this modern world. So I think Mr. Girmay Haile emphasized the importance of fostering a strong sense of pride in our identity, while also encouraging a diverse perspective. I think what stood out to me is that it's going to be, we need these crucial conversations with both the older and younger generations, to have these meaningful conversations. These conversations will help turn the light on for our youth, just as the light turned on for Mr. Girmay Haile that day when his grandma spoke to him about our heroes. So again, thank you to everyone who showed up today, who participated, who helped set this up. And of course, to our esteemed guest, Mr. Girmay Haile, thank you so much for being a gracious and enlightening participant in this conversation. We are extremely lucky to have someone of such stature here with us. For several hours here, you were speaking to all of our hearts, and we thank you for that. Your presence has truly enhanced the depths of our exploration into this important and relevant topic. So thank you all for joining us today. And we'll see you next time.
I have a question, please.
Oh.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you to one person. I wouldn't say anything about Mr. Girmay. Thank you, Sanai, you said all. But thank you, Al-Azhar, for guiding me to do it the right way. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for everything, but I want to let know, after we finish this program officially, we will continue chatting, and Ezra will brief us the current situation of our country. But thank you, everybody. Sanai, again, the mic to you.
Thank you, Al-Azhar. Yes, okay. For those of you, I know some further is late, but for those of you who still have some energy, Ezra, my brother, you can take it from here.